And so I think what we do is we look for the stories behind the items. And, you know, anybody who likes antique and vintage, we're romantic, but we also are know-it-alls. And we want to know everything about the industry so we can be the leading expert on that.
Danielle Colby has finally spoken, revealing details that are changing how fans view one of American Pickers' most debated stories. For years, questions lingered about the relationships and behind-the-scenes tensions that shaped the series, while Colby remained largely silent. Now, she has shared her perspective, raising new questions about what really happened. What did Danielle witness during those years? And why are her comments causing fans to rethink a story they thought they understood? Join us as we unravel Danielle Colby's revelations about Frank Fritz. Roadside beginnings in Iowa. The truth is, fans had gotten the friendship dynamics of this trio wrong right from the beginning of everything. The relationship dynamic of Danielle, Frank, and Mike is often viewed as unbalanced. Most people think that Mike and Frank were the only active duo in the group, while Danielle was a reliable third-wheeler of some sort. But that in itself is a lie. It is a huge narrative that grew popular simply because nobody decided to clear it up. In truth, she was anything but a third-wheeler. At the start, Danielle Colby didn't enter the fray as a TV star. Back in 2010, when American Pickers kicked off, she was just a friend helping out. Mike Wolf and Frank Fritz were the ones who hit the road running. They would hit the road, dig through old barns for cool stuff, and argue for ages while Danielle stayed back in LeClaire, Iowa, running Antique Archaeology, the shop where they sold their finds. She answered phones, tracked down leads, and ensured everything kept moving. Despite her more passive role, the fans loved her immediately. On social media, it was very evident how much they related to her hardcoreness. Her tattoos, fun energy, and way of keeping things real were all a joy to watch. And her character wasn't just loved for appearance either. They loved how well she did in her job of holding it all together for the screen-time hogging duo. Mike and Frank played a big part in the show's success. Growing up in Iowa, where the shop is, they'd been buddies for years who built their relationship on the love of old junk. Danielle saw how well they clicked. Mike was the guy with big dreams, always talking about saving history, and Frank was the quieter one focused on details. Minor details which would look or sound irrelevant to them, like how an old toy worked, or why a remote felt lighter than others. She watched them argue a lot of times. For instance, an argument could break out because Mike wanted a rusty sign, while Frank was instead eyeing a motorcycle. She didn't complain, though. To her, it was fun to watch. Danielle would laugh at how silly it was when they would call her from the road, joking about who won the argument for the day. In contrast to how it turned out in the end, the early days were simpler. After they drove around looking for treasures in the trash, they would rush back to her for an appraisal. Danielle kept the shop ready for whatever they brought back. While she looked through the things, they would tell her stories about their trips and converse as she tried to figure out what to do with the finds. Eventually, as the show was getting bigger, fans started coming to the shop to see her. She would act surprised that the visits weren't directed to her two colleagues, but with time, she got used to it. It was all fine and good until something weird happened on one occasion. When a customer came in asking about Mike and Frank's relationship, she mistakenly blurted something out. Perhaps it was fate attempting to forcefully place a foreshadowing in American Pickers. But till today, she still can't explain why she replied that even though things were currently exciting, they weren't going to remain the same forever. Did things remain the same? Not in the slightest. The show hit a new high, and with it, extra problems walked through the door. The highs of fame brought a new low. American Pickers blew up fast, and Danielle Colby, was right there when it happened. Even though it started slow, Mike's initial struggle of pitching the idea for years finally bore fruit. Initially, the networks kept declining his pitch, thinking nobody would want to watch two guys picking junk. But a breakthrough came in 2010 when the History Channel decided to take a chance. Their belief in the trip rewarded them with a staggering 3.1 million viewers in the very first episode. At one point, it became so crazy that they had to hire extra people just to keep up with the ant-like flurry of customers. Suddenly, the show wasn't easy anymore. They were. Filming in the excess of 250 days a year, during those days, they would spend long hours on the road, and it was becoming evident on TV. The cast and crew were exhausted. Fame hit them all differently, and with the exhaustion and all, Mike leaned even deeper into it. Away from their usual collective, he went ahead and opened a shop in Nashville. Within no time, it took off. Crowds lined up to see him, and he met them with even greater energy. On the other hand, Frank didn't care for the spotlight. He stayed in Illinois and kept scavenging little by little in his own way. According to her, it was the perfect balance. Mike was loud with his tinkering, and Frank was silent with his. This was looking beautiful, but with the arrival of big money, it started to feel less like an adventure and more like a job. Maybe it was because the economy wasn't smiling, but by 2015, episodes cost $250,000 more than in the early days when they started. Suddenly, pressure came in, and the passion factor fled out the doors. Suddenly, every find had to be a hit. There was no space for impulsive actions or passion-filled projects anymore. At times, they even allegedly had to use scripted scenes to make the episodes more interesting. Even their relationship suffered. She would hear the two sometimes argue over situations where they would have laughed at in the past. The fame they got from television brought so much to their table, but it took even more. As the days went by, their relationship got even worse. Television tug of war. After the separation, things were becoming worse by 2017. American Pickers was still a hit, but behind the scenes, the three had separated. Mike was still completely invested. He was all in and pushing to make the show even bigger. He'd call her from his Nashville store, talking about new shop ideas and finds. But Frank was different. He'd call less, and whenever he did, it sounded like the complete opposite of his friend. He sounded way more worn out than usual, and this caused worry. After some time, he broke the news to them. As he was away, he had been dealing with Crohn's disease. His stomach hurt a lot, and it was getting worse week by week. He was very private about his condition, and whenever Danielle asked about it, he would immediately dismiss her efforts. Other times, when he chose to entertain her questions, he would simply lie that he was fine and recovering properly. It didn't take long for his secret to be revealed, though, because with each coming shoot day, his availability became worse. He would miss a large number of consecutive rounds and meetings, and whenever he was available, he was hard to watch. He would struggle between locations, and when it came to doing heavy-duty drills, it was even worse. Before she knew it, she was stuck in the middle. In addition to Frank's distance due to illness, Mike got busier. Now, when the fans came in to ask about the duo, she didn't have anything to say, because she was also clueless. Normally, the production team would find a way to accommodate Frank during those difficult moments, but it was getting increasingly difficult. Because of this, his screen time was struggling, and his fans started getting frustrated. The few times he was there on TV, it was normal for the viewers. It was the same old chemistry they knew and loved, but for the crew who filmed alongside the trio, nothing was the same. Their relationship had broken further, and now they even participated in heated arguments. Mike would allegedly want to go hard on something or pull off a massive stunt. And to Frank, it felt like he was being phased out. He knew Mike was aware of his illness and struggled to understand if he was supposed to participate or not. Anytime he would confront the producers or his friend about the increasing difficulty, they would shrug and go ahead like he wasn't even there. That way, his even smaller window of screen time got limited to only a few normal episodes, while Mike gained the spotlight in all the blockbuster ones. By 2019, since it was clear something was amiss with the viewers, to fill the gap, the producers secretly brought in a replacement. Upon hearing this, Frank's health reportedly tanked even further, and he had to abandon the life he loved. The year the van stopped rolling, a year after the replacement stunt by the channel in 2019, the wheels finally fell off the van. In March 2020, Frank Fritz's last American Pickers episode aired, and just like that, he was gone. The channel didn't announce it. Mike, who allegedly knew of the plans, didn't reach out to him, and Danielle was reportedly in the dark about the whole matter. After an uproar from the fans about Frank's absence, the network finally released a statement. They wrote about some company procedures, legal schedules, and condolences. It was through this series of posts that most of the public found out that Frank had been suffering from a deadly disease. Mike also released a statement. In it, he spoke about how close they were and how reminiscent he felt about the whole matter. The fans felt bad, but all they could do was digest what they had just read. What they had just read was enough for them to rush to Frank's social media to flood his mentions with comforting messages. Frank, on the other hand, was confused about what was going on. Why was he reading about his departure online and not via email? And why was he being relayed? It was all just so confusing. He allegedly scrolled in confusion till he got to Mike's post. What he saw left him in shock, and although he chose to remain silent for a while, it reached a boiling point when The Sun interviewed him after the announcement. Frank angrily split his side in that interview. He told The Sun that he hadn't talked to Mike in 2 years. He also spoke about how his back was messed up, and even though his friend knew, he chose to keep silent about it and still went ahead to post a fake heartfelt message. After the interview was posted online, fans flipped out. They started raising questions to the producers, asking the real reason why Frank left. They were especially angry, thinking it was all a large plan by Mike to ditch his best friend for fame and greed. But the truth was something else entirely. Frank's Crohn's had gotten worse. In just 2 years, he had reportedly taken over 17 hospital trips for painful rehab and treatment. During the same time, the sadness he felt caused him to pick up an alcohol addiction. As a result, he also had to juggle these painful sessions and alcohol rehab. It was sad for Danielle to see. She still cared, and in her eyes, he was fading right before her eyes. Because of another thing Frank said to The Sun, more rumors spread about the situation. In it, he spoke about how evident it was that Mike was trying to phase him out. He said that after a huge argument with him on set one time, that was when it all started going downhill. He alleged that those painful moments were exactly the time the replacement character started having more screen time. Not only that, but the marketing team were in on it too. When they weren't promoting the newcomer, they would allegedly promote Mike as the sole proprietor of the franchise, completely phasing him out. Although Danielle tried to ease the heat Mike was receiving by stating how the whole situation just came about because Frank wasn't able to keep up, it didn't help the rumors. What was left for her to do? Her 2 closest friends had fallen out, and the internet was aggravating the issue. No matter what she chose to do, it all just got worse. The only good news was that Frank was still trying to get back into American Pickers. Sadly, just as it seemed he was about to make a comeback, A tragedy struck the Fritz family. A tragic full stop on affairs. By July 2021, fans were still restless, flooding social media with demands for the truth and urging the cast, especially Danielle, to pick a side. It was unbelievable. After she heard the question, she got so angered that she decided to end everything. She didn't choose a press release or a high-profile television interview to break her silence. Instead, she grabbed her phone, snapped a selfie with Mike Wolfe, and posted it to Instagram with a statement message. She described Mike as her best friend and big brother, declaring that she supported him fully. In that moment, the Team Mike versus Team Frank debate had its first official casualty. But Danielle wasn't interested in a one-sided hit piece. After the pictures, her post pivoted into a deeper, more somber reflection on the man who was no longer on the American Pickers set. She confessed to feeling an incredible sadness for the loss of Frank on the show, but more importantly, for his personal struggles. For over a decade, she had been a front-row witness to his life. She offered a heavy, heart-wrenching observation. Frank had caused himself a great deal of pain, and it had been difficult to watch. Her words weren't fueled by anger, but by a hope that after years of being unwell, Frank would finally receive the help he needed. Danielle explained that she was only speaking up because her silence was being mistaken for speculation, and her words were being twisted by tabloids that lacked access to the actual cast. Unlike Mike's turn, this time, Frank didn't even have the luxury of replying to this post. His long battle with Crohn's disease was starting to take a catastrophic toll. He wasn't doing well in any sense, and the windows for the hospital trips were becoming more frequent. In 2022, the situation turned dire when Frank suffered a major stroke. The news rippled through the American Pickers family. While Danielle maintained her distance, respecting the space Frank seemed to need, Mike immediately dropped everything and ran to his side. His actions in this moment completely shattered the public's narrative about a feud between them. Inside the hospital room, Mike was there, sitting by the bed, bringing in old items and small treasures from their decades of tinkering together. At the time, Frank was suffering from severe memory loss, and this action was a desperate attempt to reach and bring him back to reality. The end of the road arrived in October 2024. When Mike called Danielle to tell her that Frank had passed away, the news hit like a heavy physical weight. Mike was wrecked, having stayed by Frank's side until the very end. It wasn't easy. Fans who had been following the situation didn't know this. After all, Mike had moved into the hospital room in secret. Because of this, after word of his friend's death reached media spaces, he was at the forefront of hate comments yet again. They saw him as someone who abandoned his friend and pushed him to his end. The heavy backlash couldn't even let anyone from the American Pickers family grieve properly. Finally, months after Frank's death, Danielle decided to provide the closure the story deserved. In a candid interview, she stripped away the fluff and confirmed what she had seen with her own eyes. Frank's body gave out, she stated plainly. She revealed that by 2018, Frank had been in and out of hospitals a large number of times. Also, she made sure to dismiss the rumors that Mike had pushed him out. According to her, the show's grueling schedule had become an impossibility for a man in constant pain to endure. She described the reality of those final seasons: Frank wincing on calls, and Mike stressing over production schedules that his partner could no longer meet. According to her, Mike abandoned being just a co-star and added caretaking to his resume. He would move shoots and wait for as long as possible before the show's momentum forced a change. Even after the cameras stopped rolling for Frank, Mike continued to help. Allegedly, without his late friend's knowledge, he assisted in paying bills and showing up when it mattered most. As she walked away from the interview, Danielle left the fans with a full, heavy picture. American Pickers continued because of Mike, but Frank's spirit remained woven into the fabric of the show. There was no big fight and no backstabbing twist. It was just the messy, heartbreaking reality of real life. Today, while Frank's soul rests in peace, American Pickers is currently airing its 27th season on the History Channel. Mike Wolfe stars in a new spin-off and acts in films, and Danielle Colby runs a burlesque museum in Iowa, all carrying the memory of Frank Fritz with them and paying tribute to him along the way. What do you think of Danielle's story? And do you believe in the betrayal conspiracy theory? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.